Both a sex language and a love language exist. I'm grateful for the sex language, Jesus. Thank God. I want a sex language, Christ. In order for us all to enjoy a wonderful sexual life in Christ, God, I would like to speak a sex language. Fans are shocked by how drastically Joni Lamb's life has altered. After years of establishing a solid image on Christian television and portraying a devout, strong family, everything has abruptly shifted. Joni is well known for her dedication to service and for always being on Daystar. She is now dealing with a very private issue. Although she and her husband were always seen as unbeatable by the public, their private relationship was deteriorating. The truth is now known. Joni Lamb's life narrative has taken an unexpected and depressing turn. She only recently spoke up because she was aware of the tragic reality of what had transpired, what actually happened, and what impact will this have on her future. The surprising reality of Joni Lamb's life-altering revelation, the rumors, the speculations, and the issues in her marriage to Doug Weiss will be revealed soon, long before anyone realized that Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss' marriage was struggling. There were murmurs. Initially, the reports were brief and came from those who were familiar with the issue and had observed minor shifts in their collaborative style. As time passed, more and more people began to believe they were dating because they didn't post anything on social media and appeared increasingly distressed in public. The wedding seemed like something from a fairy tale to many. After Marcus Lamb passed away, Joni fell in love once more with renowned Christian counselor Doug Weiss. Behind the scenes, cracks were beginning to show, but the public saw their relationship as a tale of healing, faith, and new beginning. People noticed that Doug was increasingly absent from events where he would typically be with Joni. When they were together in public, they didn't seem to have the same spark. It was evident from a sidelong glance, a tight-lipped smile, and a gap between them that had previously not existed. At first, fans laughed it off. Every marriage has its ups and downs. But the reports became more dire. According to some of Doug's close friends, he was feeling depressed due to the pressures of fame. He had been a well-known counselor for years, assisting couples in resolving challenging issues in their relationships. For him, however, entering the Christian TV industry was a completely new universe. Being married to Joni Lamb meant that everyone was watching him closely, that his past was constantly being examined, and that any mistake he made may end up in the headlines. Some believe that his relationship with Joni was suffering as a result of all this stress, which was weakening him. The stories then became much more bizarre. There were rumors that Doug was having legal issues. Although there was no evidence, there was a lot of speculation that his previous financial issues might be related to his consulting firm. Some said that he had been involved in legal disputes over business transactions, while others included his name in ongoing investigations. The fact that these reports were spreading was a warning flag, even if no one was certain. Was Joni aware of this before to their marriage, or did she recently learn something that causes her to reevaluate everything? The notion that Joni and Doug disagreed greatly about how to carry on with their missionary activity also gained traction. Building Daystar and ensuring Marcus's legacy would endure had been Joni's life's work. However, according to other sources, Doug had his own opinions about how things ought to be conducted, and these disagreements caused a great deal of tension between them. Joni didn't want to make any significant changes, but some even speculated that Doug might have desired a larger role in the network. Might this have been the turning moment in their marriage? The public could only speculate because they had no answers. However, as the weeks passed, an increasing number of people began to question what was happening. Fans who had previously believed that Joni and Doug had a solid marriage were now reconsidering their beliefs. Were they having a tense private relationship? Was Doug hiding something? How long this had been going on was the most crucial question. To make matters worse, Joni and Doug remained silent about these reports. Since neither of them addressed the claims directly, many people believed that they had some merit. Really, they ought to come forward and make things right if everything was all right. People had more questions than ever before as a result of their failure to respond, which made matters worse. The real surprise came next. There were reports that Joni and Doug had been living separately for some time. According to insiders, Joni had been concentrating on her career and disregarding inquiries about her personal life, while Doug had discreetly left the home they shared. When this began was unclear. It would indicate that their marital problems had existed for much longer than anyone had anticipated. Fans who enjoyed their romance were now disappointed and perplexed. How did a wonderful marriage turn into a partnership filled with a lot of questions and space? These two appeared to be drifting apart, but was there something more significant at play? For the time being, the truth remained a secret, but one thing was clear. This was more than simply a story. Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss were involved in something, and the truth would undoubtedly surface shortly. Joni told me about the sexual texts once more, but this time she shoved them away. After she informed you of the text he was sending you, you were pleased. I couldn't take it any longer. How about the explicit texts? How could he harm us? I don't want to mention that we discussed having sex. Although he never sexted me, others believe we discussed sex. He never said anything inappropriate. We didn't have sex before we were married. He is well known for being truthful. It's just sexual conversation. But that's not it. When she begins to discuss it, I keep it to myself. My degree of worry is increasing, therefore things aren't going well for me. I can feel my body reacting. I started experiencing panic attacks at that time. Many things were said when you received the text. As she read all of this to me, Rachel and Beck questioned from the other side, "What's going on?" I'm not going to tell them anything about that. The only person she trusted once Jimmy entered the scene was him, until the six of us met Jimmy Evans. I didn't want to embarrass her or discuss it with her other children, so I contacted Jimmy by himself. When I phoned Jimmy by himself the day before the meeting, he informed me of this. "Hey, I don't know how to deal with this," I responded. "Could you please help me solve it? Is this acceptable? After the divorce, what comes next?" The shock, the pain, and the reactions. When news broke that Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss were divorcing, fans were taken aback. They demonstrated their strength and loyalty a few months ago, proving that love can endure loss. However, that meticulously crafted image has now collapsed, leaving behind turmoil, despair, and unanswered questions. For Joni, the divorce represented more than just the dissolution of her marriage. She had hoped for a future, but it was over. She believed that God had given her another opportunity at happiness following Marcus Lamb's death, so she shared her love story with millions of others. She now had to confront the unpleasant reality that the thing she had assumed would continue forever ended far sooner than she had anticipated. Joni was depressed when she was by herself. She had previously spent years presenting herself as having a strong religious belief, but now she had to deal with a very personal matter in the most public manner imaginable. They scrutinized every aspect of her life. People observed every move she made and gave careful thought to everything she said and did. She couldn't hide from the world when she was grieving. Conversely, Doug experienced difficult circumstances. As a marriage counselor, he was suddenly receiving a lot of negative publicity. How could a man who had spent decades teaching couples how to maintain a healthy relationship fail to rescue his own? People noticed the irony of the situation, and Doug knew it. In the context of partnerships, many believed he was less reliable than they initially believed. Jan's kids, who had accepted Doug into their family, were questioned how they felt and stated they were struggling to comprehend what had happened. Since they believed it would benefit their mother following Marcus's passing, they supported her decision to remarry. They now felt compelled to protect her from the criticism and abuse that were coming from all sides. People hated that she had to go through another split in public because they could see how much anguish she was in. Doug's close pals were likewise divided. Some believed that the public had been too critical of him. They said that there are a variety of reasons why marriages fail and that nobody should be aware of the true circumstances of his and Joni's relationship. Others, however, believed there was more to the story. Tongues of tension, unspoken fights, and unspoken secrets. The media didn't take the time to analyze what transpired. Seeing Joni and Doug split is a sad but inevitable part of life. Some Christian news websites expressed sympathy for them both and offered prayers and words of support. Not everyone was that forgiving. According to some sources, Joni was taken aback by the breakup, and the news reports discussed what went wrong. Others claimed that their relationship was being strained by their public persona, and that Doug had been dealing with issues behind the scenes for some time. Then came the concepts. According to others, Doug had been wishing to end the marriage for months, but had kept quiet so as not to offend anyone. Some believe Joni had discovered something irresistible, forcing her to make the difficult decision to leave. Even before anyone was aware of the separation, many believed it had been planned for a long time. It was reported that they had been secretly preparing for this moment. Throughout it all, Joni maintained her composure in public. She concentrated on her objective and spoke thoughtfully about trusting in God's plan. She didn't want the people who were watching to see how difficult things were for her. But in private, she was depressed. Losing a marriage is difficult, but when everyone is looking, it's a very different situation. Doug made an effort to disappear as well, but it was difficult. It is uncommon for Christian society to pardon wrongdoers, and the penalty he received was severe. Some said that he was lying about his past and concealing information that was now becoming public knowledge. By claiming that only those in the marriage are aware of what truly occurs, some individuals shielded him. People gradually shifted their focus from their shock at the divide to the universally asked question, what would happen next? Would Joni marry someone else? Would Doug quit his job as a public minister? Would they ever discuss the true cause of their breakup? One thing was certain, this phase of their lives was gone, and millions of people would be watching. However, it was too early to predict what would happen next. Will Doug Weiss face jail time as a result of the legal storm? Following the divorce, rumors began to circulate that Doug Weiss would be facing serious legal issues that could result in his incarceration. Initially, it sounded like just another wild plot hypothesis concocted by discussion magazines and social media users. As further whispers circulated from those who knew what was happening, it became evident that something was happening behind the scenes. The first indication that something was amiss was when Doug ceased being seen by others. For years, he had been quite forthcoming about his job as a counselor, frequently speaking at conferences and on Christian television, but suddenly he stopped talking. He reduced his social media activity, and invitations to events he had accepted were either rescinded or oddly rearranged. This was making the rumors more powerful. Was there something he wanted to conceal? Then, according to a report from someone close to Doug, he was under investigation for financial misconduct in his counseling practice. According to other sources, legal investigation resulted from issues discovered with his business practices. A number of people said that he had argued with previous clients, and some of them even filed a lawsuit against him. The Christian community was shocked by the possibility that Doug might be in legal jeopardy, even though he had not been charged. Joni Lamb could not have predicted this turn of events. She had already experienced the heartbreaking reality of her second failed marriage, and now she had to see her ex-husband's name associated with a potential legal dispute. According to those close to her, she was utterly taken aback. She had based her life on honesty, faith, and the conviction that she was following God's will. But now she was prepared to question everything. Had she been deceived? Had she trusted someone who didn't live up to their claims? The thought of it made her ill. Joni had always been cautious about Daystar's image because she was aware of how easily a scandal might ruin the network she and Marcus had established. Even though she had nothing to do with Doug's legal troubles, she was aware that she could also receive some of that attention. The extent of Joni's knowledge prior to the breakup was already the subject of media speculation. Before everything went wrong, had she discovered something that led her to decide to leave Doug? Had someone advised her to avoid him in order to protect Daystar? She was unable to provide definitive answers to every question that arose. Meanwhile, Doug was dealing with an increasingly serious issue. Attorneys speculated about what would occur next. Charges could result from an investigation into his businesses if he misappropriated his funds. The consequences may be dire if he violated any regulations pertaining to the confidentiality of client information or financial mismanagement. The allegations against him were given greater credence by several news reports that even claimed that former employees or co-workers had filed complaints. Doug, for his part, claimed that nothing was accurate. According to others who knew him well, he was upset about the accusations and maintained that he was being unfairly singled out. He believed that certain people were attempting to damage his reputation by inciting further conflict by using the issues brought on by his divorce. After decades of hard labor, his reputation as a Christian counselor was now in jeopardy. Even in the absence of evidence, accusations of wrongdoing were frequently sufficient to destroy a person's reputation and career. Supporters of Doug defended him, claiming the charges were part of a coordinated effort to damage his name. They believed that the split was being used to undermine him by others in the company who didn't like him. However, other people were unsure. Those who had been following him for a while began to question whether there was more to the tale. After all, these stories were not from a single source. Reports were sent by many individuals, all of whom stated that there was a problem. Throughout the weeks, the level of tension continued to increase. The speculations about the allegations were enough to damage Doug's reputation, even though there were no official charges yet. Whenever churches asked him to speak, they would back off and wait to see what would happen before re-engaging with him. In a way seldom seen in Christian media before, he was discussed as someone who might be implicated in a scandal rather than as a respected leader. This made Joni's predicament even worse. Everyone was now expecting for her to comment on the legal reports and looking to her for answers. But what could she say? Although she had previously discussed the agony of the breakup, this was something else entirely. According to multiple accounts, she was instructed to remain silent in order to protect Daystar and herself. According to others, she was still contemplating everything and attempting to understand how things had spiraled out of control. What would happen to Joni's future if Doug actually did do anything wrong? Do people believe she was wrong to marry him in the first place, or do they believe she is a victim? What if he wasn't guilty too? Would she ever be able to repair the harm she had caused? As long as the issue remained unresolved, these were the questions that kept coming up. Although it was impossible to predict exactly what would happen next, one thing was certain: this court storm was far from over and had the potential to completely alter the course of events. And the public was very interested in Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss's story when she revealed they were engaged. She was beginning a new chapter in her life following the untimely death of her first spouse, and she had dedicated her life to faith and service. It was a tale that nearly felt divinely orchestrated. Over time, however, the fairy tale started to unravel. What started out as a tale of love and reconciliation swiftly devolved into a scandalous jumble of gossip and rumors. Long before Joni and Doug's divorce was made public, there were rumors that their marriage wasn't as solid as it appeared. The rumor didn't have much substance at first. The fact that Doug and Joni weren't showing up as frequently as they usually did was noticed by many. They used to appear together at public gatherings, but these days they only do so alone. In the past, there was less discussion about their relationship on social media, which was dominated by adorable photos and moments spent together. People initially believed it was due to their busy schedules. After all, Joni had to operate Daystar and Doug had his counseling duty. However, as time passed, it became more difficult to ignore the notion that something wasn't right. One of the first mysteries revealed was that Joni's children had never truly approved of the marriage. There was stress from the start, according to several family members. Despite Joni's desire to go on and find happiness once more, her children were reportedly more cautious. They saw Marcus Lamb as the only person who could match the life their parents had created together. Some family members even claimed that Joni's choice to remarry so soon after Marcus's passing had generated strife among the family. Rumor had it that battles had taken place behind closed doors. In public, the family always presented a unified front, but the fissures were already visible. Then, even more shockingly, it was revealed that Doug Weiss had brought his own secrets into the marriage. Before some skeptics began investigating his past, Doug was seen as a mentor by many. His previous relationships, financial affairs, and even the veracity of some of his statements regarding his work were all under question. Some believed that because Joni was so eager to begin a new chapter in her life, she might have overlooked warning signs. Some said she had placed too much faith in a man who wasn't who he claimed to be. Doug and Joni were reportedly at odds over their respective positions in the public and private spheres. Everyone's most talked about scandal was this one. Conversely, Joni had spent decades creating her kingdom with Daystar, while Doug was accustomed to managing his own church with minimal outside assistance. Joni wasn't certain, but there were whispers that Doug desired a more senior position at Daystar. According to several accounts, Joni felt compelled to fit Doug into a system that had already been established before he arrived, while Doug desired more control over decisions. Their disagreements about leadership, ministry, and how to manage personal and professional lives are said to have caused them to quarrel frequently behind closed doors. The final and most destructive rumor then circulated: Joni felt compelled to dissolve the marriage after learning something about Doug. While some believed it had more to do with his personal life, others believed it had something to do with his legal issues. There were numerous suspicions, ranging from financial misconduct to betrayals of confidence, but no definitive explanations were found. Everyone agreed that Joni had permanently departed the marriage and had no intention of returning. Of course, everything in the news had a reason. According to several news sources, Joni was a woman who was surprised and offended by dishonesty. According to some, she married too soon and is now dealing with the fallout. Some even said that both parties profited from the situation and that it was more of a publicity act than a genuine partnership.